Today is Friday, February 13th, 2026. The time is 7:01 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to Geopolitical Updates from AGI Era. Cold Open. We begin this evening with a stark declaration from the heart of Europe that echoes globally. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, speaking at the Munich Security Summit, has asserted that the world's long-standing rules-based order no longer exists. This isn't merely a rhetorical flourish. It represents a profound re-evaluation of the foundational principles that have underpinned international relations for decades. Merz conveyed a palpable sense of urgency, stating plainly that our freedom is not guaranteed in what he described as an era increasingly dominated by major global powers. His remarks signify a growing recognition among Western leaders of a dramatic shift in the geopolitical landscape, one where traditional alliances and established norms are being fundamentally challenged. This significant pronouncement sets the stage for a deeper analysis into how nations, particularly in the Euro-Atlantic sphere, are now grappling with a more fragmented and less predictable global environment. The implications for international cooperation, security, and the future of democratic governance are immense, demanding our immediate attention. Turning our attention to the United States, a significant policy reversal has occurred. Former President Donald Trump has officially revoked a landmark ruling that classified greenhouse gases as a danger to public health. This decision dismantles the legal bedrock for a substantial portion of U.S. environmental legislation, and the White House has characterized it as the single largest deregulation in the nation's history. Critics contend that this move will incur considerable costs for American citizens, both environmentally and economically, potentially impacting international climate agreements and the global effort to mitigate climate change. In a separate development, satellite imagery reveals that Iran is actively fortifying an underground complex situated near one of its nuclear sites. This activity emerges amidst persistent tensions as discussions between Iranian and U.S. officials continue regarding Tehran's nuclear program. Such developments typically heighten international concern, raising questions about Iran's long-term nuclear ambitions and the efficacy of ongoing diplomatic efforts to curb proliferation. The construction suggests a calculated move to enhance the security and possibly the operational capacity of its nuclear infrastructure, adding another layer of complexity to regional security dynamics. Meanwhile, a grave humanitarian crisis continues to unfold in Sudan. A recent UN report alleges that 6,000 people were killed in a single city, el-Fasher, over a mere 3-day period. The report attributes these atrocities to the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, commonly known as the RSF. This devastating loss of life underscores the escalating violence and the severe human cost of the ongoing conflict in Sudan, drawing urgent calls for international intervention and accountability for these severe human rights violations. Across the Middle East, tensions are once again flaring in the Palestinian territories. The mayor of Hebron has voiced alarm, stating that Palestinians are not protected as Israel expands its control across the West Bank. Local Palestinians report that an Israeli power grab is systematically excluding them from crucial decisions concerning planning and development within the region. This expansion of control exacerbates existing frustrations and could ignite further unrest, complicating prospects for a lasting peace settlement and intensifying the daily struggles faced by Palestinian communities. Shifting to East Asia, Japan has announced the seizure of a Chinese vessel, an action that signals rising tensions with Beijing. Japanese authorities reported that the fishing boat attempted to flee after being ordered to stop for inspection within Japan's territorial waters. This incident highlights ongoing maritime disputes and territorial claims in the region, particularly around contested islands, and demonstrates the persistent friction between the two economic powerhouses. Such encounters carry the potential for rapid escalation, demanding careful diplomatic management. Finally, in South Asia, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party has swept to victory in the nation's first election since the Gen Z uprising. Voters in Bangladesh are reportedly hoping for a return to democratic governance after 15 years of authoritarian rule under former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. This electoral outcome signifies a potential political realignment and could usher in a new era for the populous nation, with widespread expectations for democratic reforms and a greater emphasis on civil liberties, a significant shift for the region. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz's assertion that the world's rules-based order no longer exists provides a critical lens through which to understand contemporary geopolitical shifts. His comments, delivered at the Munich Security Summit, go beyond simply observing rising powers. They articulate a profound concern about the erosion of the fundamental principles and institutions that have governed international relations since the end of the Cold War. The BBC's reporting notes Merz's emphasis on the vulnerability of democratic freedoms in this new era, highlighting a sentiment shared by many Western leaders who perceive a systemic challenge to their established norms. This perspective is particularly salient when contrasted with analyses from other global media. For instance, an examination of publications like Al Jazeera often reveals a focus on what some describe as the inherent biases and limitations of the previous rules-based order itself. From this viewpoint, the existing framework was frequently seen as serving the interests of a select group of powerful nations, rather than fostering truly equitable global governance. Therefore, Merz's declaration, while alarming to Western ears, might be interpreted by others not as a collapse, but as a necessary or even overdue recalibration of global power dynamics, forcing a confrontation with historical inequities. Independent media in regions like the Middle East or Africa might frame this as a moment where the global South can assert greater agency, moving away from a unipolar or heavily Western-centric international system. The so what of Merz's statement is multifold and deeply strategic. Economically, a fragmented world order translates directly into increased uncertainty for global trade and investment. Multilateral trade agreements could become harder to negotiate and enforce, leading to a rise in bilateral deals that favor larger economies. Supply chains, already stressed by recent global events, will likely face further nationalistic pressures and protectionist policies, increasing costs and reducing efficiency. We could see a significant slowdown in globalization as nations prioritize self-sufficiency and national security over interconnectedness. For businesses, this means navigating a more complex regulatory environment and higher geopolitical risk premiums on foreign direct investment. Countries reliant on open trade and established international laws, such as Germany itself, stand to lose the most from such a fracturing. In terms of shifts in the balance of power, Merz's declaration explicitly acknowledges a multipolar world where rising powers like China and a resurgent Russia are actively challenging American and European hegemony. This isn't merely a competition for resources or influence, it is a contest over the very definition of international legitimacy and the fundamental principles of state behavior. The strategic consequences are immense. We're witnessing a period of renewed military buildup and alliance formation driven by a perceived need for self-preservation in a less predictable environment. Traditional institutions like the UN and the World Trade Organization may find their authority increasingly questioned and circumvented. Regional conflicts could become more difficult to contain as external powers align with proxies, further exacerbating instability. The long-term strategic consequences include a potential return to sphere of influence politics, where larger powers exert dominance over their immediate neighbors, potentially leading to a reduction in national sovereignty for smaller states. The emphasis on "our freedom is not guaranteed" speaks to a heightened sense of vulnerability among democratic nations, prompting greater military cooperation and intelligence sharing, particularly within NATO and the EU. Furthermore, the erosion of a rules-based order could embolden revisionist states to act more aggressively, testing the boundaries of international law with less fear of collective reprisal. The world faces a period of sustained strategic competition where diplomatic solutions may be harder to achieve and the risk of miscalculation leading to broader conflict is significantly elevated. This is not simply a challenge to an existing system, but a fundamental reordering of global power with profound implications for every nation. Today, German Chancellor Merz's assertion of a vanished rules-based order dominated headlines, signaling a new era of geopolitical uncertainty, while a significant U.S. climate policy reversal and escalating conflicts in Sudan and the West Bank underscored the multifaceted challenges facing the international community. For our watch list for the next 24 hours, first, monitor any further statements or reactions from European leaders to Chancellor Merz's remarks, particularly regarding potential EU and NATO responses to a perceived decline in global stability. Second, keep a close watch on developments concerning the proposed U.S. climate deregulation and any immediate reactions from international climate bodies, as this could trigger rapid global policy shifts and diplomatic disputes.